Quan floated through the wreckage of the old space station, his helmet light cutting through the darkness. Dust particles danced in the beam like tiny stars. He had been searching this abandoned place for 3 days now, looking for anything valuable that others might have missed. Most salvagers took the obvious stuff and left. Quan was different. He looked for the stories hidden in forgotten places. The station had been empty for 200 years. Nobody remembered who built it or why they left. Quan ran his gloved hand over the wall, feeling the grooves and marks. Everything told a story if you knew how to listen. His scanner beeped. Something metal behind the wall panel. Quan pulled out his tools and carefully removed the panel. Behind it sat a small metal box, untouched by time. His heart beat faster. This was why he loved his job. Inside the box lay a crystal star map. Quan held it up to his light and gasped. The crystal came alive, projecting coordinates and strange symbols he had never seen before. The symbols glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Back on his ship, the Wanderer's Echo, Quan spent hours studying the crystal. His computer could not translate all the symbols, but the coordinates were clear. They pointed to a location in the Crimson Nebula. But something was strange. The coordinates had a timestamp. They would only work during a specific astronomical event. Quan checked his star charts. 3 binary star systems would align in exactly 3 days. The alignment happened once every 70 years. His hands shook as he realized what this meant. Whatever was at those coordinates only appeared during the alignment. He needed more information. Quan sent a message to Chixtar, his information broker. Chixtar was an insectoid alien, with 6 eyes and an incredible memory. If anyone knew about mysterious coordinates, it would be him. They met at a space station bar 2 days later. Chixtar's antennae twitched nervously when Quan showed him the crystal. "Where did you find this?" Chixtar's voice came out as a series of clicks that Quan's translator converted to words. "An old station." "Why? Do you know what it is?" Chixtar looked around to make sure nobody was listening. He leaned closer. "This is a key to the dragon market." Quan frowned. "Dragon market?" "Of course not. Humans are too new to the galaxy. The dragon market is older than most civilizations. It exists in a pocket dimension. Dragons gather there to trade things that normal species cannot even imagine. Stars, memories, pieces of time itself. That sounds incredible. Why is it secret?" Chixtar's eyes all focused on Quan. "Because it is forbidden to most species. Dragons are the oldest sentient race in the galaxy. They existed before the Galactic Council. Before most species learned to use fire, they consider other races to be children. Annoying children. But some species can go? A few. Ancient races that dragons respect. Species that proved themselves worthy over millions of years." Chixtar paused. "Humans are not on that list. In fact, I heard that 3 humans tried to enter the dragon market in the past 50 years. None came back." Quan felt a chill run down his spine. But along with the fear came excitement. This was a chance to learn about a culture nobody else had documented. As an anthropologist, he lived for moments like this. "What happened to them?" Quan asked. "Nobody knows. Maybe the dragons killed them. Maybe they are still there, unable to leave. Maybe they were erased from existence." Chixtar pushed the crystal back toward Quan. "Whatever this is worth, it is not worth your life." But Quan could not stop thinking about the dragon market. That night on his ship, he held the crystal and watched the coordinates glow. 3 humans had tried and failed. But why had they failed? What mistakes did they make? Quan spent the next day researching everything he could find about dragons. There was not much. Dragons rarely interacted with other species. When they did, they were described as proud, ancient, and powerful. They valued strength, knowledge, and tradition. The more Quan read, the more he understood. The 3 humans who disappeared probably went in with typical human attitudes. Humans were bold, sometimes too bold. They probably tried to demand entry or fight their way in. Dragons would not respect that from a young species. But what if someone approached them differently? What if someone showed genuine respect and curiosity? What if someone treated them as teachers instead of obstacles? Quan made his decision. He would go to the dragon market, but he would not go as a conqueror or a thief. He would go as a student, ready to learn. The alignment would happen in 8 hours. Quan prepared his ship and himself. He wore simple clothes, nothing aggressive or military. He brought no weapons, only his scanner and notebook. He wanted to look like what he was, a scholar seeking knowledge. As the 3 binary stars began to align, Quan entered the coordinates into his navigation system. His ship's computer warned him that the destination existed in unstable space. Quan ignored the warning and engaged the jump drive. The universe twisted around him. Colors that had no names flashed past his viewport. Time felt strange, like he was moving forward and backward at once. Then everything snapped back to normal. Quan looked out his window and forgot how to breathe. The dragon market floated before him in impossible space. Massive structures made of crystallized starlight stretched in every direction. They formed platforms and walkways that connected to each other in ways that hurt to look at. Some paths went up and somehow came down. Others seemed to exist in multiple places at once, and everywhere, dragons flew. They were enormous, each one the size of a small building. Their scales caught the strange light and reflected it in rainbow patterns. Some dragons had wings of pure energy. Others seemed to swim through space as if it were water. Their forms were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Quan's scanner went crazy, detecting energy readings that should not exist. His ship drifted forward, pulled by some invisible force toward a docking platform. As he landed, Quan saw a dragon watching him. It was deep blue with eyes like burning stars. The dragon's gaze locked onto his ship, and Quan felt like he was being judged by the universe itself. He took a deep breath. This was it. Everything he had worked for, studied for, lived for, came down to this moment. Quan checked his translator one more time, grabbed his notebook, and opened the airlock. The air outside smelled like lightning and old books. The platform beneath his feet felt solid, but somehow liquid at the same time. Each step made ripples of light spread outward. The blue dragon lowered its massive head to look at Quan directly. When it spoke, its voice resonated in Quan's chest, like thunder. A human, here, how amusing. Quan swallowed his fear. He bowed, deep and respectful, the way he had read that ancient scholars once bowed to their masters. Honored Ancient One, Quan said carefully, I come seeking knowledge, not trouble. I apologize if my presence offends. I simply wish to learn about the wonders of this place. When to? I simply wish to learn. When to? The dragon tilted its head, surprised. It had clearly expected something different. Around them, other dragons began to notice the human. They circled above, curious and cautious. Quan stood straight and waited. He had entered the dragon market. Now he would see if his gamble would pay off or cost him everything. The blue dragon stared at Quan for what felt like an eternity. Finally, it made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. Quan could not tell which. You are different from the other humans who came here, the dragon said. Its voice was slightly less hostile now. Those ones demanded entry, as if they had a right to it. They believed their weapons and their pride would protect them, and they were wrong, Quan said quietly. Very wrong. The dragon lifted its head. I am Instructor Day 1. I teach the young ones about inferior species. You may walk the market, human. Try not to cause trouble. If you do, I will personally remove you from existence. Quan bowed again. Thank you, Instructor. I will be respectful. Day 1 flew away, leaving Quan alone on the platform. Other dragons watched him from the nearby structures. Quan could feel their eyes on him, studying him, judging him. He took a deep breath and started walking toward the market proper. The first row of stalls sold things Quan had never imagined. One merchant offered bottled starlight in jars that seemed to hold entire galaxies. Another sold what looked like frozen moments of time, preserved in crystal spheres. A third merchant had books that wrote themselves, their pages filling with new stories as Quan watched. At the starlight stall, an old silver dragon arranged her products. Quan approached slowly, making sure she could see him coming. "Excuse me, honored merchant," he said. "I have never seen anything like these. How do you capture starlight?" The silver dragon turned to look at him. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw he was human. But instead of anger, Quan saw curiosity. "You are the human everyone is talking about," she said. Her voice was softer than Day One's, like wind through tall grass. "The one who bowed to instructor Day One. I meant no disrespect by coming here," Quan said. "I am an anthropologist. I study cultures and civilizations. Your people are the oldest in the galaxy, but we know almost nothing about you. I hope to learn." The silver dragon made a humming sound. "An anthropologist. A scholar. That is unexpected." She gestured to her wares with one clawed hand. "Starlight is captured at the moment a star is born. We extract the first light and preserve it. Each jar contains the birth cry of a new star." Quan leaned closer, fascinated. "That is incredible. And the different colors?" "Different types of stars. Blue giants, red dwarfs, white stars like yours. Each has its own signature." The merchant seemed pleased by his interest. "You are the first customer in 3 cycles who asked about the process instead of just the price." They talked for nearly an hour. Quan asked questions, and the merchant answered them. She told him about star harvesting, about the ancient art of light weaving, about the markets that existed before this one. Quan took notes in his notebook, his hand moving quickly to capture every detail. When he finally thanked her and moved on, the silver dragon called after him. "Human, what is your name?" "Quan," he said. "I am Merchant HFY. Come back before you leave, Quan. I would like to give you something." Quan smiled and nodded. He continued through the market, stopping at different stalls. At each one, he introduced himself politely and asked questions. Some dragons ignored him. Others told him to leave. But a few, like HFY, seemed surprised by his genuine interest and talked with him. He learned about living songs that dragons kept as pets. He saw weapons forged from collapsed stars. He watched dragons trade memories like humans traded coins. Everything fascinated him, and his notebook filled with observations and sketches. What Quan did not know was that someone else was watching him. Yuna stood in the shadow of a tall crystal pillar, wearing a humanoid form. She looked like a young woman, with long black hair and golden eyes. In this form, she could move through the market without attracting attention. Being a princess was exhausting sometimes. Everyone always wanted something from her. She had been watching the human since he arrived. At first, she expected him to do something stupid. Humans were known for being reckless. But this Quan surprised her. He treated every dragon with respect, even the merchants who insulted him. He asked intelligent questions. He seemed more interested in learning than in acquiring power or wealth. When a young dragon accidentally knocked over his notebook, Quan just laughed and picked it up without any anger. Yuna found herself moving closer to hear his conversations. At one stall, Quan was talking to an ancient green dragon about historical events. "So the first hatching happened before the universe had solid matter?" Quan asked. The green dragon nodded. "We dragons are born from the void itself. We existed before planets, before stars cooled enough for life." "That is amazing," Quan said, writing quickly. "That means your species witnessed the formation of everything. You are living history." The green dragon looked pleased. "Most young species do not understand this. They think history began when they learned to make fire. We humans are definitely young, Quan admitted. We have only been in space for a few hundred years. To you, we must seem like babies. Yes, the green dragon said bluntly. But you are a polite baby. That is rare. Yuna found herself smiling. This human had no idea how significant his behavior was. Dragons respected strength and knowledge, but they also respected humility. Quan showed both. He admitted his species' youth without shame and sought to learn rather than prove himself. She decided to get closer. Yuna followed Quan to the next stall, where a red dragon sold ancient star charts. Quan was examining a map that showed trade routes from millions of years ago. This is beautiful, Quan said. The detail is incredible. How did you map routes before there were planets to navigate by? The red dragon merchant started to answer. But another dragon interrupted. This one was young and aggressive, with black scales and red eyes. His name was Bo-Ram, and Yuna knew him as a troublemaker from one of the warrior clans. Why is everyone talking to this human like he belongs here? Bo-Ram demanded. He is from a species that just learned to leave their own planet. He has no right to be in this sacred place. The market grew quiet. Other dragons turned to watch. Quan stood very still, his heart pounding. This was the moment he had been afraid of. I have no desire to cause problems, Quan said calmly. I am simply a visitor hoping to learn. You contaminate this place with your presence, Bo-Ram hissed. He moved closer, his size making Quan look tiny. The other humans who came here had to be removed. Perhaps you should join them. Number. Quan's mind raced. He could not fight a dragon. He could not run. All he had were his words and his wits. He took a breath and made a decision. You are right, Quan said. Bo-Ram stopped, confused. You are right. I do not belong here by the standards of age or power. My species is young. We have not earned a place among the ancient races, but I hope to learn from my betters. That is why I am here. Quan bowed to Bo-Ram. If my presence truly offends you, honored one, then I will leave. I came seeking knowledge, not conflict. The market was completely silent now. Every dragon watched to see what would happen. Bo-Ram looked uncertain. He had expected the human to fight back or make excuses. This humble response caught him off guard. Before Bo-Ram could respond, another voice rang out across the market. How interesting. Everyone turned. A young woman in humanoid form walked toward them. She had black hair and golden eyes that seemed to glow with inner fire. When she moved, the air around her shimmered slightly. Quan did not know who she was, but every dragon in the market immediately bowed their heads in respect. Even Bo-Ram lowered his gaze. The woman stopped in front of Quan and smiled. A human who shows wisdom beyond his species' years. How very interesting indeed. She extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Quan, still confused, but following his instincts, shook it. I am Yuna, she said. Her golden eyes studied his face. And I think you and I should talk. Quan had no idea who this woman was, but the way every dragon bowed told him she was important. Very important. He released her hand and tried to look calm, even though his heart was racing. I am Quan, he said. Thank you for intervening, I think? Yuna laughed. The sound was light and musical. You were handling it well on your own. I was impressed by your response. Most beings, when challenged, either attack or flee. You chose humility. That takes a different kind of courage. Bo-Ram, still bowing, spoke in a strained voice. Princess Yuna, I apologize. I did not mean to cause a disturbance during your visit to the market. Princess. Quan's eyes widened slightly. He had been talking to royalty without knowing it. Yuna waved her hand dismissively at Bo-Ram. You may go. Try to be less aggressive next time. Strength is not proven by bullying visitors. Bo-Ram flew away quickly, clearly embarrassed. The other dragons slowly returned to their business, though Quan noticed they kept glancing at him and Yuna. "Walk with me," Yuna said. It was not really a question. They walked through the market together. Yuna moved with grace and confidence, and Quan found himself relaxing slightly. She seemed genuinely interested in talking to him. "So, Quan the anthropologist," she said, "what do you think of our market so far?" "It is beyond anything I imagined," Quan said honestly. "I have studied dozens of civilizations, but this place operates on principles I do not fully understand. The way you trade in concepts rather than just objects. The physics that should not work but clearly do. It is humbling. Humbling. There is that word again." Yuna smiled. "You know what I find interesting? You are the first human to survive more than an hour in the dragon market. Do you know why?" Quan thought about it. The others probably tried to prove themselves through strength or technology. They wanted to show that humans were equal to dragons. Exactly. And dragons saw that as arrogance from a young species. But you came as a student, not a competitor. You showed respect without being weak. You admitted your limitations without apologizing for existing. Yuna stopped walking and looked at him directly. "That is wisdom." Before Quan could respond, a deep bell sound rang across the entire market. Yuna's expression changed. She looked suddenly tense. "I have to go," she said quickly. "There is a ceremony I must attend. It was interesting to meet you, Quan. Perhaps our paths will cross again." She started to walk away, but then turned back. "Actually, would you like to see something not many outsiders witness? A traditional dragon ceremony?" Quan's anthropologist heart leaped. "Are you sure that would be allowed? I am a princess. I can invite who I want." Yuna smiled mischievously. "Come on. Just stay quiet and observe. Try not to touch anything glowing." She led him through the market to an enormous structure at its center. The building was made of flames that did not burn, and crystal that sang when the light hit it. Dragons were flying toward it from all directions. Inside was a vast hall. At its center burned a pillar of eternal flame that reached from floor to ceiling. Hundreds of dragons in their true forms lined the walls. At the front of the hall sat 7 ancient dragons, larger than any Quan had seen. They radiated power that made the air itself tremble. Yuna guided Quan to a small alcove where he could watch without being too visible. "Stay here," she whispered. "Do not move, unless the flames directly threaten you. This is the Hall of Eternal Flames. It is very sacred." She left him there and walked to the center of the hall. As she walked, her form changed. The humanoid shape melted away, replaced by her true dragon form. She was beautiful, with scales that shifted between gold and silver. She was smaller than many of the other dragons, but she moved with undeniable grace and power. One of the ancient dragons at the front spoke. Its voice boomed through the hall. "Princess Yuna, you have returned for the 3rd cycle. Have you reconsidered your decision?" "No, High Lord Taejin," Yuna said. Her voice was clear and strong. "I have not." Murmurs spread through the gathered dragons. Quan listened carefully, trying to understand what was happening. High Lord Taejin continued. "The bonding trial is sacred. Every dragon of royal blood must complete it before taking their place on the Council of Flames. You must choose a guardian companion who will serve and protect you. Yet you have rejected over 300 worthy candidates from the finest clans. None of them possess the spark of true resonance," Yuna said firmly. "Resonance cannot be more important than duty," another ancient dragon argued. "You endanger the stability of the Imperium with your refusal. Choose someone, anyone, and complete the ritual." "Would you have me bond with someone I do not respect?" Yuna asked. "Someone who sees the bond only as a path to power? That dishonors the entire tradition." Quote, the ancient dragons looked at each other. Clearly, this argument had been happening for a while. Quan watched, fascinated. Even dragon royalty had to deal with family pressure and political expectations. High Lord Taejin's eyes narrowed. Then today you will choose, or you will be removed from the line of succession. We cannot wait any longer. Yuna's wings flared in anger. But before she could respond, something unexpected happened. Quan, trying to shift his weight in the small alcove, accidentally stepped backward. His foot hit a crystal formation that he had not seen in the shadows. The crystal shattered, with a sound like breaking glass. Instantly, defensive wards activated. Flames erupted around Quan, swirling up from the floor. These were not normal flames. They were the testing fires of the hall, designed to destroy anyone who disrupted the sacred space without proper authority. Quan did not have time to think or move. The flames hit him. Everyone in the hall turned to look. They expected to see the human consumed, reduced to ash in seconds. The flames were old magic, powerful enough to destroy anything without sufficient spiritual power. But the flames did not burn him. They swirled around Quan like curious animals, touching his skin gently. Where they made contact, his skin glowed slightly, with the same void-touched essence that had protected him in space. The flames seemed to recognize something in him, something ancient and strange. Quan stood frozen, watching the flames dance around his hands. They felt warm but not painful. After a moment, they faded away, leaving him unharmed. The entire hall was silent. High Lord Taijin stood, his massive form trembling with shock. Impossible. Those flames destroy anyone unworthy. How did a human survive? Yuna stared at Quan, her golden eyes wide. Then, slowly, a smile spread across her dragon face. "This is a sign," she said loudly, her voice ringing through the hall. "The ancient flames have tested this human and found him worthy. According to our laws, any being who can withstand the hall's flames is eligible for the bonding trial." "You cannot be serious," Taejin growled. "He is human. A child species. It must be some kind of trick." "Our laws are clear," Yuna said. She looked directly at Quan, and he saw a plea in her eyes. She needed this. She needed an escape from the impossible situation her family had trapped her in. Quan understood. He could walk away right now. He could apologize and leave, go back to his ship and his normal life. Or he could help her. He could be brave for just a few more minutes. Yuna spoke the ritual words, her voice steady and strong. "By flame and void, by star and song, I name thee my chosen." The hall erupted in chaos. Dragons roared in protest. The ancient High Lords argued with each other. Some dragons demanded that the ritual be stopped. Others insisted that the law was law. Through it all, Yuna kept her eyes on Quan. He walked slowly from the alcove toward the center of the hall. Every dragon watched him. He felt their anger, their disbelief, their curiosity. When he reached Yuna, he did the only thing that felt right. He bowed deeply, showing her the same respect he had shown to every dragon he met. "Princess Yuna," he said clearly, "I accept your choice, though I barely understand it. I promise to do my best not to embarrass you too badly." Despite the tension, several dragons made sounds that might have been laughter. Even in this serious moment, Quan's human humor shone through. Yuna transformed back into her humanoid form. She extended her hand to him again. And this time, the gesture felt different, more significant. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly only he could hear. High Lord Taejin's voice boomed across the hall. "If this human is to be bonded to a princess, he must prove himself through the trial of 3 flames. We will see if he is truly worthy, or if this was merely an accident of fate." Quan looked at Yuna. "I assume that is going to be difficult?" "Very," she said. But she was smiling. "But something tells me you are good at difficult things." The trial of 3 flames would begin at dawn the next day. Yuna took Quan to a guest chamber in the Crystal Palace where the royal family lived. The room was beautiful, but strange. The walls shifted colors with his mood, and the bed seemed to float without any support. "Get some rest," Yuna said. "The trials will test you in ways you cannot imagine." After she left, Quan sat on the floating bed and tried to process everything that had happened. A few hours ago, he was just an anthropologist exploring a market. Now he was bonded to a dragon princess and about to face trials that might kill him. He should have been terrified. Part of him was, but another part, the part that had always driven him to explore and learn, felt more alive than ever. There was a knock at his door. When Quan opened it, he found Yuna standing there, still in her humanoid form. She held 2 cups of something that steamed and smelled like cinnamon and starlight. "I thought you might want company," she said. "This is going to be your last peaceful night for a while." They sat together, and Yuna explained what would happen tomorrow. The trial of 3 flames would test his knowledge, his courage, and his heart. Most candidates trained for years before attempting it. Quan had one night. "Why did you choose me?" Quan asked. Yuna was quiet for a moment. "I have been watching you since you arrived. The way you treated everyone with respect. The way you asked questions like you genuinely cared about the answers. The way you admitted your weaknesses without shame." She looked at him. "Most of my suitors wanted to bond with me because of my status. They saw a path to power, but you stepped forward to help me. Not to gain anything for yourself." "I might fail tomorrow," Quan said honestly. "Maybe, but at least you are trying. That is more than I could say for any of the others." They talked late into the night. Yuna told him about growing up as a princess. Always watched, always judged. Quan told her about his travels, the cultures he had studied, the wonders he had seen. Despite coming from completely different worlds, they found they had much in common. When dawn came, Quan felt ready. Not confident, but ready. The first trial took place in the Library of Burning Memories. It was a vast space where dragon history lived. In the form of flames, each flame contained memories, knowledge, experiences from millions of years of dragon existence. High Lord Te Jin explained the trial. "You must enter the library and survive for 1 hour. Most beings cannot withstand the information overload. The knowledge burns through their minds like fire through paper. We expect you will last perhaps 5 minutes before going mad or dying." "That is encouraging," Quan muttered. Yuna squeezed his hand. "Remember, you do not have to absorb everything. That is impossible. Just survive." Quan entered the library. Immediately, flames surrounded him. They pressed against his mind, trying to force their knowledge into him. He saw the birth of the universe. The first dragons taking form from nothing. Wars that destroyed entire galaxies. Love stories that spanned eons. It was too much. His human brain was not designed to hold this much information. Quan felt his thoughts beginning to fragment under the pressure. Then he remembered what Yuna said. He did not have to absorb everything. He just had to survive. Quan stopped trying to understand it all. Instead, he did what he always did as an anthropologist. He asked questions. "Library," he said out loud. "Can you hear me?" The flames paused. A voice, ancient and vast, responded, "Yes." Small one. "You wish to speak? I do not want to take your knowledge by force. I want to learn. Can you teach me? Just one thing. Something you think I should know." The flames swirled around him differently now. The pressure on his mind eased. The library had been trying to force-feed him information because that was what it did to dragons. But Quan was not a dragon. He was a student, asking for a lesson. The library showed him a single memory. The first time, dragons encountered another, sentient species. The dragons had been alone for so long that they wept with joy to find they were not the only thinking beings in the universe. "You were lonely," Quan said softly. "Even you, the oldest and most powerful, New loneliness. Yes, the library said. Remember this, human. Power and age do not protect you from the need for connection. When Quan emerged from the library after an hour, every dragon watching was shocked. He was alive, sane, and smiling. How? Taejin demanded. I asked nicely, Quan said. The second trial was the flame of courage. Quan was led to a chamber where he would face his deepest fear, made real. Yuna could not follow him inside. She waited outside with the other dragons, worry clear on her face. Inside the chamber, darkness surrounded Quan. Then it began to take shape. He saw himself as an old man, alone in his ship, dying with nobody to remember him, no family, no friends, no one to care that he had ever existed. All his discoveries forgotten, all his work meaningless. It was his true fear. Not pain, not death itself, but dying alone and forgotten, leaving no mark on the universe. The vision of his lonely death spoke to him. This is what awaits you. Give up now. Go home. Quan looked at the vision of his future self. His hands shook, his throat felt tight. But he spoke clearly. Maybe this is what will happen. Maybe I will die alone. But I would rather die trying to understand this amazing universe than live safely in ignorance. Every moment I have learned something new has been worth it. If I die tomorrow, at least I lived fully today. The vision stared at him. Then it smiled sadly and faded away. The flames recognized his courage. Not the courage to be unafraid, but the courage to be afraid and continue anyway. When Quan emerged from the second trial, Yuna ran to him and hugged him tightly. Dragons did not usually show such emotion in public, but she did not care. 2 down, she whispered. 1 more. The third trial was the hardest. The flame of sacrifice took place in the main hall again, with all the dragons watching. High Lord Taejin explained. In this trial, you must choose. You can renounce the bond right now. We will erase the memory of the last day, and you can return to your life as if none of this happened. Or you can accept the bond fully, knowing that you will never be able to return to your old life. You will face prejudice, danger, and hardship as a human among dragons. Choose. It was not really a choice. Taejin expected him to leave. Any reasonable person would. Why would a human give up his freedom for a species that barely accepted him? Quan looked at Yuna. She looked back at him, her golden eyes reflecting hope and fear. He thought about everything he had learned. About how dragons valued loyalty above all else. About how they respected beings who kept their word. About how they had been lonely once and still remembered that feeling. He thought about Yuna, trapped by tradition, needing someone who chose her for who she was, not what she represented. Quan turned to face the assembled dragons. He spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I choose to stay, not because I want power or status. I stay because Yuna chose me when she could have chosen anyone in the universe. That kind of faith deserves loyalty. Humans believe in choosing your family. Yuna chose me. Now I choose her. A-team. He paused, then added. Also, I am an anthropologist. The chance to study dragon culture from the inside is literally my dream job. I would be a terrible scholar if I walked away from this opportunity. Several dragons made sounds of surprised amusement. Even High Lord Taejin looked grudgingly impressed. The eternal flames in the center of the hall blazed brighter. They recognized the truth in Quan's words. He had passed the trial. Yuna transformed into her dragon form and lowered her head so it was level with Quan. You are either the bravest human I have ever met, or the most foolish. Can it be both? Quan asked. She laughed, the sound echoing through the hall. Yes. It can definitely be both. The bonding ritual was completed with ancient words and flames that wrapped around both Quan and Yuna. When it finished, Quan felt different. He could sense Yuna's emotions, feel her presence, even when she was not near. It was strange and wonderful. But High Lord Taejin was not finished making trouble. He looked at the gathered dragons and spoke. The human has proven himself in the trials, but can he protect the princess when real danger comes? We will see. Quan did not like the way he said that. It sounded like a threat. That night, as Quan tried to sleep, he could feel through the bond that Yuna was worried. Something was coming. The trials were over, but the real challenges were just beginning. 3 days after passing the trials, Quan woke up to the feeling of danger through his bond with Yuna. He had been staying in the Crystal Palace, learning about dragon customs and protocols for the formal bonding ceremony that would happen today. The ceremony would make their bond official, in front of all the dragon clans. He found Yuna in the garden, staring at the strange sky of the dragon market. She looked worried. "Something is wrong," she said without turning around. "I can feel it. Taejin has been too quiet since you passed the trials. He hates that you succeeded." Quan had learned enough about dragon politics to know she was right. Taejin led the conservative faction that believed dragons should remain separate from younger species. A human bonded to a princess was his worst nightmare. "What can he do?" Quan asked. "The bond is complete. The trials are finished. He can make our lives difficult. He can arrange accidents." Yuna turned to look at him, her golden eyes serious. "He might even try to separate us by force. If you disappeared, the bond would eventually fade. Then, he could force me to choose someone else." Quan felt a chill. Would he really go that far? Quan. To preserve what he sees as dragon purity? Yes. The formal bonding ceremony was scheduled for sunset. Dragons from across the Imperium had gathered to witness it. Some came out of genuine interest. Others came hoping to see the human fail somehow. Quan wore ceremonial robes that Yuna had given him. They were made of fabric that seemed woven from light itself. He felt ridiculous and magnificent at the same time. The ceremony took place in the Hall of Eternal Flames again. Yuna, in her dragon form, stood at the center. Quan stood beside her, tiny in comparison but trying to look confident. The ancient High Lords watched from their positions of honor. High Lord Taejin began the ceremony with the traditional words. But Quan noticed something strange. Several dragons he did not recognize stood near the exits. They were not watching the ceremony. They were watching Yuna. Through the bond, Quan sent a feeling to Yuna. Danger. She felt it too. Her wings tensed slightly, but she continued with the ritual responses. The ceremony required Yuna to circle the eternal flame 3 times while Quan stood in the center. It symbolized the dragon protecting and honoring their chosen companion. As Yuna began her first circle, the strange dragons moved. They were fast. Before anyone could react, they had grabbed Quan with some kind of energy net and were flying toward the exit. Yuna roared and lunged after them. But more attackers blocked her path. They wore armor that dampened dragon fire and carried weapons designed to fight dragons. These were not random criminals. This was planned, expensive, professional. Quan was carried through the market at incredible speed. His captors were taking him somewhere far from the palace, far from help. Through the bond, he could feel Yuna's fury and fear. She was fighting her way through the attackers, but there were too many. The mercenaries brought Quan to a ship hidden on the edge of the dragon market. Their leader was a scarred creature with 4 arms and cold eyes. "Nothing personal, human," the leader said. "We are being paid very well to make you disappear. You will be taken far away and held until the bond fades." They threw Quan into a holding cell on the ship. The energy net dissolved, but the cell walls were solid. No way out that he could see. Quan forced himself to think calmly. Panic would not help. He needed to use what made humans special. Dragons were powerful, but humans were creative. Humans adapted. Humans survived. He examined the cell carefully. The walls were energy barriers, probably controlled by the ship's main computer. The door had a physical lock as backup. Quan had no tools, no weapons, nothing but his mind. But he did have knowledge. 3 days of learning about dragon technology. Conversations with Yuna about how their ships worked. Observations from walking through the market. Dragon technology was based on power and will. It responded to strong intention and energy. But human technology was based on logic and circuits. These mercenaries were not dragons. Their ship probably used standard galactic technology. Quan looked at his ceremonial robes, the fabric woven from light. He smiled. Sometimes the universe gave you exactly what you needed. He carefully unraveled a thread from the robe. The light fabric conducted energy. Quan used it to short-circuit the door's backup lock. It took 3 tries and 1 mild electric shock, but the door opened. Now came the hard part. The ship was full of armed mercenaries. Quan could not fight them directly. He needed to be smart. He moved through the ship quietly, using maintenance corridors that the mercenaries probably forgot existed. Humans were good at finding the spaces others overlooked. He made his way toward the engine room. In the engine room, Quan found what he needed. The ship's power core. It was a standard model, the kind used on thousands of ships across the galaxy. Quan had worked on similar engines during his salvage days. He could not destroy it. That would kill everyone, including himself. But he could make it malfunction in very specific ways. Ways that would force the ship to return to the dragon market for emergency repairs. Quan worked quickly, his hands steady despite his fear. He rerouted power conduits, adjusted safety protocols, and programmed a cascade failure that would begin in exactly 10 minutes. Enough time for him to hide, but not enough time for the mercenaries to fix it before they had to turn back. As he finished, alarms began blaring. His escape from the cell had been discovered. Quan heard heavy footsteps running through the ship, searching for him. He hid in a cargo container just as the mercenary leader burst into the engine room. The leader checked the power core, found nothing obviously wrong, and left to continue the search. 10 minutes later, the ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed. The power core began failing in exactly the way Quan had programmed. The captain had no choice but to turn back toward the dragon market for emergency repairs. As the ship changed course, Quan felt through the bond that Yuna knew he was alive and coming back. He could feel her determination. She was coming for him. The ship limped back into the dragon market. The moment it docked, Yuna was there. She had brought the palace guards and several of the dragons who respected Quan. They stormed the ship. Quan emerged from his hiding spot just as Yuna, in her dragon form, tore through the ship's hull. Their eyes met, and relief flooded through the bond. "You came back on your own," she said, amazed. "Technically, I convinced the ship to come back," Quan said. "There is a difference. We, the mercenaries, were captured. Under questioning, they revealed that High Lord Taejin had hired them. He had hoped that removing Quan would prove that humans were too weak to be bonded to dragons, but his plan had backfired. Quan had escaped and outwitted trained killers, using nothing but human ingenuity. The story spread quickly through the dragon market. The human who could not breathe fire or fly had defeated his captors with cleverness and knowledge. Taejin was forced to step down from his position in disgrace. Hiring assassins against a bonded companion was a grave violation of dragon law. His own actions had proven that humans deserved respect. The formal bonding ceremony was held again 2 days later. This time, no one interrupted. Dragons from across the Imperium watched as Yuna and Quan completed the ancient ritual. When it finished, something unexpected happened. The eternal flame in the center of the hall blazed with light that filled the entire space. The ancient dragons gasped. "The flame recognizes your bond as something new," one of the ancient dragons said with wonder. "Not master and servant, not ruler and subject, but true equals choosing to stand together. This has not happened in our recorded history." Yuna, in humanoid form, stood beside Quan and took his hand. Maybe that is what makes it special, she said. We chose each other freely. No obligation. No tradition forcing us. Just choice. In the following weeks, Quan became something unique in dragon society. He was the first human to be fully accepted, not as a subordinate, but as an equal to royalty. He continued his work as an anthropologist, now studying dragon culture from the inside. His observations and writings would eventually help humans better understand the oldest race in the galaxy. Yuna gained something equally valuable. She had a companion who challenged her, who saw her as a person rather than just a princess, who brought new perspectives to ancient problems. Together, they began to bridge the gap between dragons and younger species. One morning, Quan and Yuna stood together on a platform overlooking the dragon market. Ships came and went, carrying goods and stories across the dimensions. Do you ever regret it? Yuna asked. Giving up your old life? Quan thought about his small ship. The lonely days of salvage work. The endless searching for meaning. Then he looked at Yuna, at the incredible world he now inhabited, at the friendship and adventure that filled his days. Not for a second, he said. I walked into a forbidden market, looking for knowledge. I found something better. I found purpose. I found someone who sees me not as a weak human or a lesser species, but as an equal. You are much more than equal, Yuna said softly. You are extraordinary. You just do not realize it yet. 6 months later, Quan and Yuna attended a Galactic Council meeting. The council was debating whether humans should be granted a seat among the ancient races. It was a controversial topic. Humans were still so young. But when Yuna spoke on behalf of humanity, her words carried weight. She told the council about Quan's courage, his wisdom, his creativity. She explained that age was not the only measure of worth. Sometimes the newest voices brought the most valuable perspectives. The vote was close, but humanity was granted provisional membership. They would have a voice in galactic affairs. It was a small step, but an important one. As Quan and Yuna left the council chambers, a young human diplomat approached them. Her eyes were wide with awe. You are the one, she said to Quan. The human who bonded with a dragon princess. We all heard the stories. We thought they were legends. Quan smiled. Just stories about a guy who got very lost and very lucky. You showed the galaxy that humans belong, the diplomat said. That we are more than they thought. Thank you. After she left, Yuna looked at Quan with amusement. Just lost and lucky? Well, mostly lost. The lucky part was meeting you. They walked together through the space station, side by side. A dragon princess and a human anthropologist. An unlikely pair that had changed the course of galactic history by simply choosing to see the worth in each other. Behind them, the story of the human who wandered into the forbidden dragon market and walked out with a princess calling him my chosen continued to spread. It became a tale told across 1,000 worlds, a reminder that sometimes the greatest bonds are formed not through power or tradition, but through respect, courage, and the simple choice to stand together. And in the quiet moments, when the universe was still and the stars shone bright, Quan and Yuna knew that their bond was more than legend or political symbol. It was real, tested by fire and trial, forged through choice and sacrifice. It was friendship. It was partnership. It was home. And that was worth more than all the power in the galaxy.